guys, okay, so today we're going to take a break from copywriting and writing, and we're going to talk about books. Just a little bit of a divergent topic. According to Goodreads, I have read 141 books in the last few years, which is not including, I did not start my Goodreads account until only a few years ago, so that's not including my college years, that's not including all the books before that. Trying to update it, work my way through it, and keep track of what I've actually read in my life. But we're just talking about books. We're going to divide this into business. Let's see, I wrote it down. Business, writing, I thought like personal development, and then other. I am going to talk about some books I liked and didn't like. So maybe I can, save you some time from reading them if it's not a topic that's interesting to you. So let's just dive in. Okay. First and foremost, and I don't have every book here in front of me because I have hundreds up there. I honestly have too many books, but that's the curse of being a writing major. Now my favorite business books. Do I have some here? I don't know if I do. Okay, I have two major favorite business books, and I will update this if you guys want more of this content. I can do another like favorite books I've read in the last 6 months or whatever in a few months and update it then. If you have also recommendations, feel free to let me know or whatever. Okay. Favorite books right now of business. I do, even though a lot of people don't like him, I love Gary Vaynerchuk. His books are great some of them are a little outdated now as social media grows and changes, and the tactics that worked at one point don't really work with time. So it's a constantly evolving field, but the meat and the bones behind it, no matter whether you think he's like loud and obnoxious or whatever, there's no doubt that he knows what he's talking about when it comes to business and social media. And his books reflect that. They're very short. They're very quick, easy to read, all of them. I haven't read his newest one yet, but I think I've read all 4 of his like first ones. Great books that just give you like the starting meat bones of business. From there, my other favorite business book is actually Ambirge, of course, The Middle Finger Project. This book is absolutely phenomenal. I still haven't finished it because it's one of those books. Well, first of all, her writing, I just like refuse to like be done with it. I have a lot of books like that. I'm one of those readers where if I'm enjoying the book so much, I don't want it to be done because then it's done. And but I have all kinds of bookmarks in there of all just great ideas that I've implemented recently and are just, it's really fun because it's her life story. And it's also her business advice. Like, hey, here, you should do this. Like, hey, I thought, but like this would work for you. Or if you're in this predicament, here's what you should do. That kind of thing. Could not recommend this for business, especially people who want to be writers, creatives, freelancers. Enough. Could not recommend it enough. Love this book. I think it's my favorite. So honestly, in terms of business, that's it. That's it that I have read that have really wowed me. Of course, when I was younger, I definitely read the what's his name? He's kind of a scammer now, but the Rich Dad Poor Dad. That was my start into entrepreneurship when I was young, of just expanding my mind of like, oh, I don't have to have like just a 9-to-5 job. Like I can do other things with my money and my time. Would I recommend it always? No. Is it practical still? Meh. Meh. Did it get the gears turning for me to get the ball rolling? Yes. So let's also talk about business books I don't like. Also keep in mind, I'm going to be talking about my opinion. So like if you liked these books, that's okay. Like we can disagree. It's not World War III up in here. Okay. And I know I've read more business books. Let me just say really quick that I know are not on this list, and that's why I want to do like update and repeat and like clean it up. Because I know there's more and I'm missing them, but I will get back to them. Anyway, ones I didn't like. Secrets of a Millionaire Mind and everything around that. Zig Ziglar, all of those kind of books. I've read a ton of them, like easily 20 or 30, and none of them really did anything for me. I think there's a lot of religious undertones for those, and for me, that doesn't tickle my fancy and like motivate me in business to get things done. That's not really what. If that works for you, great, bless. It didn't work for me, and there's a lot of that kind of reading between the lines. I didn't also like 0 to 1 because Peter Thiel is a annoying, terrible human, and his book is terrible. And that one makes the rounds all the time. Don't enjoy it. And then the E-Myth. That one is huge. And I understand the premise of what the E-Myth book is, which is really just like all of the brains you kind of need as an entrepreneur, like the visionary and the executor and the organizer, whatever the hell the categories were. But I do not enjoy this like style of writing that was very hot in the like 80s and 90s of business books of like, he's a mentor and he's working one-on-one with this business and here's everything they said word for word, and the dialogue is just like clearly like no one hired a screenwriter or someone to like really make this story captivating. Like each sentence is so bland and boring, and it's in all of these business books, which is why it's so hard for me to get through them. Is they're like, you should think about the customer, and she is like, oh my god, you are right, I should think about the customer, I should put my, like, it's just such a manufactured story that you can tell it's not real, or it's kind of real, but it's like really, it's like 200 pages too long of a story that like could have been like condensed in like a paragraph or a chapter. Like, hey, this is Susie's bakery business, here's like the chapter on what we did. So that's it for business. Now let's move on to writing. Now, I think most of you are not going to be shocked that Cal Newport is my favorite. So I won't even dive into that. All of them, top to bottom, are great. Obviously, Deep Work and So Good They Can't Ignore You are two of my favorites. The other ones are good refreshers on reducing technology in your mind, and that ties into writing because you have to be able to focus to be able to write, in my opinion. And if you're on the internet, which most of us are, that will suck you down the deepest rabbit hole of everything. So you have to protect your creative focus time, and this is the Bible I'm creating. Also for writing, I also enjoy, I grabbed it, Everything by Steven Pressfield. Everything, just all of his work. It's very like, hurrah, get it done, like fight the demon in your mind of like that's trying to the resistance, but that works for me, that tickles my fancy, that's how I like to kind of think of things. I very much have an inner like Jillian Michaels in my brain. If you ever saw her on like The Biggest Loser, that is much more my inner mentor than like Deepak Chopra, Buddha, the Dalai Lama, like that is not that their messages aren't important and very essential to society, but much more Jillian Michaels, much more aggressive. So this tickles my fancy for creative work. Highly recommend it, and look at how short it is. You could really get like the good kick in the pants you need, and like I think this one's do the work, and like he has a ton, obviously. So and then Stephen King's book, I know I have it somewhere and I can't find it in my pile, on writing. It's one of the best. Stephen King is not only legendary, he's just a brilliant mind. And the book is all of his, like, it's his life, but it's his tactics also on writing, which is so incredibly practical. I think there's a lot of people, like, like, let's just go for the big ones. J.K. Rowling, who's like, she couldn't finish her last book, so she went and rented a hotel room for like a month or two or whenever it was to like finish the book. I think for a lot of us with responsibilities and jobs and money, that's impractical. Like a lot of them just have these like kind of impractical schedules because they're very successful. And Stephen King is like, I go into my creepy attic and write for 500 words every morning, and that's it. Like, it's just so down to earth for him being Stephen King, who could probably rent, like, a haunted chateau and, like, build an entire horror writing castle if he damn well pleases. But he's very just practical. So, for writing, I think Was that it for writing that I had? Yeah. Oh, crap. All right. We gotta go back to step because I forgot some other business ones. I need to mark this sheet while I go through it. Some other business ones that didn't tickle my fancy. The Art of Client Service. If you've never ever worked with clients, good book. It's a good one because it's kind of like how to work with clients and make them happy, but it's extremely outdated and life has changed a lot since then. The Art of the Start, I just finished that the other day. Terrible, 0 out of 10, would not recommend. Never Eat Alone, and I'm very torn on this one because on one hand, his networking advice, stellar, top notch. Some of the best practical networking advice on keeping track of systems and this and keeping in touch with people and all these things. But his ego is so big, you have to like wade through that while you read the book to like tolerate that practical advice, which is hard because the book is like pretty thick. Never Eat Alone is pretty a thick book. So you've got like 75% of like ego waiting to get to the gems. So I would highly recommend read it, take those little good nuggets, give it back to the library. And then I just finished the other day Sales Advantage by Dale Carnegie. Not great. I would honestly say that most business books I read I don't enjoy. But I keep reading them, hoping that one of them will really, which is so ironic because I've been in business for, oh my God, this will be the 10th year. Officially like registered LLC. I started freelancing years before that and I took way too long to register my LLC, but 10 years of just a registered company. Well, we'll have to party. Okay, so we covered writing. Now let's move on to, I think, personal development. Good and bad. We'll start with the bad, with personal development. We'll mix it up. Ones that just didn't work for me. All of Ryan Holiday's books, which is ironic because Stoic philosophy, also, if you're just here for like business and copywriting and all that, like this is where that ends. You can, I'll see you next time. You know, this is not, now we're just getting into like fitness and fun, and mindset and all those things. But Ryan Holiday, I love Stoic philosophy. I think writers like Marcus Aurelius and Seneca are some of the greatest mindset books you'll ever read. I think everyone should have to read them. I think should be required in like high school. You know, like we can like boot out Grapes of Wrath, which is the worst book I've ever read. The worst book I've ever read is Grapes of Wrath. And I don't know if it's because I was assigned it. But anyway, so Ryan Holiday, and I should love his books. All of his books are about Stoic philosophy. But all of his books are not, just do not work for me. So if you like Stoic philosophy, I would skip Ryan Holiday's books and just go right to getting the real books. I think I have one right here, if I'm not mistaken. And they're so much more digestible. I mean, you have to do a good translation, because I'm pretty sure they're like old as heck. Nope, that's a different one. But I know they're all old. But like, here's one, you know, like, look how short that is. Could not recommend them more. So that one. The next one that's really, really popular, and like I said, I've talked, like, let me just say that I've read so many hundreds of books, but I'm trying to talk about the popular ones so I can maybe save you time. The mindset book about like the growth versus like stuck mindset, which I know has been actually like debunked a whole bunch of time by other writers or other psychologists and stuff. No one could replicate this study that like the main premise is you either have like a growth focused mindset or like a stagnant mindset. And I think the book was a little too black and white and a little less like, hey, if you are stuck in these like negative cycles, here's how you could theoretically get out of them. It was just like, you either have it or you don't. And like kids do and adults don't, and like all these things. And I think the premise was good. Just, I tried, couldn't read it. Everything by Grant Cardone. I know he's motivational, that's great, but his books are just like too much hoorah and not enough practical. I don't like too much hoorah without like tactical things to do. It's not my jam. Essentialism, get rid of your stuff and do less. there you go, save you days of reading that book. The Make Your Bed book, which went viral everywhere, the like army guy who was like, you need to make your bed because it organizes your life. Like, there you go, there's the summary of the book, Make Your Bed. The rest of it was like his story, and I was like, okay. And then The Art of War. That book was not, and which is so funny because I do love like hoorah and like military and like aggressive kind of writing. I can't believe it's like such a, it was just so weird to read because that's such a like famous like almost business book of like how to just like destroy your enemy and like, but it was a little too, it was like a little too much. It was interesting, but I think like we're past that as a society a little bit, like that kind of aggressive must be destroyed. I mean, okay, we're obviously not past it, as we're in the middle of like a raging war in Europe, but I would like us to be past it. So I think that's why I think I had a hard time reading it, because it was a little too much hoorah, like behead everybody every chance you get, you know, too far. So moving on to ones I loved in the personal development, and then we're gonna get into like just other category in general. I know this light is super bright, but like that's literally my blinds closed. This is the best I can do. Absolutely phenomenal. Atomic Habits. Oh, I have it. It's over there. Yeah, Atomic Habits. Great. Best book I ever read. And I'll put links to all these down below. High Performance Habits. I'm reading it yet again for like the third or fourth time. Cannot get enough of this book. I would say this is almost a follow-up. Not really, but like Atomic Habits is like how to get in the habit of like brushing your teeth and like shower, you know, like really, really fundamental habits, which is fine. And this is when like you want to excel in your career and as a person and as a spouse and as a like as a business leader, and like the really, really tactical things to grow in the areas that matter to change your life, not just like how to get in the habit of like flossing. You know what I mean? And I love Atomic Habits, don't get me wrong, it's one of the fundamental books of habit development, but there's another level after that. Oh, of course I don't have this one either in front of me. I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. If you want to get your finances in order, this is the best book. It is the best book. It is the Bible. It is everything of personal finance. I cannot recommend it enough, especially for freelancers. If you need to save for retirement, which you should be doing as a freelancer, because no one else is saving for you. Literally no one. So you better save for yourself a little bit here and there. Anyway, just read it. Could not recommend it enough. Follow all 6 steps. It will help you change your entire financial life. Besides just like everybody's advice these days of just like, just invest in Bitcoin and you'll like retire. I understand your premise. I'm not going to argue in the comments about Bitcoin. I do not have that emotional energy. But let me just say, you should do some other things. You should be out of credit card debt, out of your student loan debt, saving for important things, maximizing things where you can. Trust me. Okay. And then another one that I love that's in the productivity sector is Work Clean, which is a book that kind of approaches productivity in the way that chefs do, which with mise en place, which means like you put your things in, as chefs do, you put your things in order, you get your steps set up, and then you execute on them flawlessly without thinking about it. And then you clean up, and then the next day you set up, and then you execute. It's a great book. It was a very, very unique book. But I love productivity books. I think those are great. The Bullet Journal Method, one of my favorites. I think this is my favorite productivity book, maybe ever. Mainly just also because I love notebooks, so like it really works for me. But if you've ever wanted to get into bullet journaling, or just if you use any kind of even paper planner, I think this book is worth the read because it's going to make you think about how to use your paper planners in a whole new light. As you can see, I have bookmarked it absolutely to death. This is absolutely one of my favorites. I reread this at least twice a year. Okay, if you're stuck in a personal career rut, let me just hide all my pens and my cords. Barbara Scher is her name, and Wishcraft, along with all of her other books, which are a ton. But this one's my favorite. This book, which is short, and then of course I have notes, and another, once again, another book I have highlighted to the nth degree. It's so good. I cannot recommend this book enough for if you're kind of a person who like has goals and dreams and hobbies and things you want to do and accomplish in your life, but you don't know which ones you should pursue as a career, which ones are really just truly hobbies, and which ones are just interests you want to play with. I think especially in today's world where capitalism has stomped on our neck so hard that everyone needs to monetize their hobbies to survive. And I know it's kind of like, ooh, the hustle, the grind, and all of these things that we kind of say that it is. Like, oh, no, we love the hustle, right? And it's like, no, you need to have another side job to afford health insurance. God bless, that's where we are in America. So, and, but minus that rant, this book is like, kind of how to segment that, how to like create like a 5-year plan and put in your goal. Like, what do you really want to do, and what do you think you want to do with your life, and how can you divide the two, and how can you bring it into your life and your day to make yourself like happy. I mean, and like really tactical, you know, like the 5-year plan, today tomorrow plan. Like, it's not just like hoorah, like a lot of these authors that I really cannot stand, because it's just like eat, pray, love energy, just like quit your job, divorce your man, go to Bali and India, and it's like, sure, okay, I will do that. Let me tell my student loans and my dog and my family that like that I'm just doing, bye. Like, really, really practical. But so very, very practical, tactical book on implementing your dreams and goals, but in a way that's like non-judgmental and non-rough, and it's like you don't have to monetize everything. Like, maybe you just need to like do your job that you actually enjoy, but like paint after work and like do something that fills the bucket in some way. Or maybe you should quit your job and become an artist. This is the book. I reread it literally 2 to 3 times a year. Literally. Cannot get enough of this book. Okay. Do I have it here? No, I don't. All the GTD books are absolutely phenomenal. I think what people think GTD, which is like getting things done, it's a productivity system. What people think the system is from the internet and what it is when you read the book are two very different beasts. Just like, we'll get into Marie Kondo in a second. And very different things. And you should, if you want to have a productivity system that really, really works for you, read the actual book and then the follow-up book called Making It All Work, I think. Oh, it's up there. Making It All Work is like the follow-up. Read them both before you implement any productivity system ever. And read them, truly. Okay. Now, I think that was it for personal development. Oh, no, we got a few more. This is going to be a long video. I don't care. Oh, another one on my absolutely I do not get him as a writer book is Mark Manson. All of his like I don't give a fuck books do not tickle my fancy. I don't know what it is. I've tried so hard. I've tried to read literally like 3 of his books now because he's so famous. And it does not tickle my, I can barely get through chapters at a time. Okay, so let's move on. And now we're getting more into like the other category. So now we're really getting into my weird personal preferences of books that are not about business and writing and productivity. I think we've covered all those now. But these are just my recommendations for great books I've read in the last like few years. Number 1, Marie Kondo. All of her books. Once again, what Marie Kondo is saying and what the internet thinks she's saying are two very separate things. All she's saying is you should love the things you own and like maybe like lovingly donate the rest. And what the internet thinks she's saying is that you own too much shit and you're a stupid American and you buy too much and you should only own like 3 books. Misinterpret what someone is saying in a book. or article or anything. It's one of my pet peeves. I'm like, did you read the book? I want to like send all of these, sorry, side tangent, but like all these people who write like all these damning articles on Marie Kondo. I just want to be like, so like you haven't read the book, right? Like you clearly did not read the book, or your reading comprehension is 0. So, okay, read those if you want to work on minimalizing your life. Could not recommend enough. And it's real short too. That's why I love Japanese authors. Very short, right to the point. Even Japanese fiction I've read. Mine is this damn thing I'm reading right now, actually on a side tangent. Uzumaki or Uzumaki? I don't know. It's a graphic novel, but damn. Mine is that. Usually, a lot of Japanese authors are very short and to the point, and I appreciate it. Moving on from there. Amityville Horror. Great book. I love horror books. Horror is my favorite genre of YouTube videos, movies, and books. Favorite. Absolute. The best. And Amityville Horror, I think, is just legendary. It's one of the most famous that, like, really sparked the genre, if you will. Great read. And short, too. Real quick to read through. Unlimited by Jillian Michaels. Once again, Jillian Michaels is the little, like, motivator inside my head. Unlimited is her best book. She has a lot of really good books. And I know a lot of people kind of just, like, disregard her fitness advice because she's not, like, a doctor. But she consults doctors on almost all of her books, so I don't know. It's actually really, really well thought out. Like, she actually tries in her books. People do not, I don't know if she's become crazy in the last few years. I don't keep up with people's personal lives too much, so just, I don't know. But her book Unlimited is more about her childhood and overcoming her trauma and, like, setting goals and how to achieve them. Great book. I have that one too, wherever it is. I just read and finished mentioning horror books. This Thing Between Us. It was such, it's one of the best fiction books I've read in years. I wanted so much more of it. Like, it was way too short. That is a book I wanted to be like 400 to 500 pages. There were so many storylines I wish he would have dived into that, like, it just captured me immediately from the first chapter, and we spiraled from there, and I am obsessed with it. I rarely have and I finished it in 2 days, which was devastating, because then you're done with it, and now you're just sad. But I read way too fast, obviously, but thus the books. But phenomenal. If you love horror, fiction, very good. I hope someone makes a, like, movie or a show or something out of it, if they could. I don't know. It's just so unique. Fitness, which is, I'm not even a man, but Man 2.0 by John Romanello is just one of the top tier fitness books. He's a very fascinating, interesting person. And he's such a legend in the fitness industry, and, like, I think the foreword in the book is by Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, it's like, it was a big deal when that was released. And I was, like, deep in the fitness industry. That I think that's when I was a personal trainer. So when it was released, it was, like, a huge deal. Great book. Another book called The Life-Changing Magic of Not Giving a Fuck. If you're someone who gives too many fucks about everybody and their opinions and your family and your friends and your social network, I would highly recommend reading this book, because it kind of gets you in the mindset of, like, no, I need to, like, worry about myself and think about myself. Like, I need to, like, refocus on me and what I care about, and not in, like, really a selfish way, but sometimes you need to be super selfish so you can reset and move forward and care about other people and things, you know? Okay, I think that was it for that list. And then just a few more. Honestly, this is just be a long book, and that is what it is. For poetry, I don't read a lot of poetry. I only got into it in the last, like, 2 years out of pure recommendations. But Andrea Gibson is, I think, the best poet of our living time. Highly recommend. Very politically charged. Very good. I mean, this is the kind of writing as a writer that, like, because copywriting is creative, but it's not creative in the way that poetry is. And it is so good. And the way that she draws lines between things that you think are unrelated but relates them, and then your mind is, like, blown at the end of the poem. As someone, I don't read a lot of poetry, honestly, so maybe there's others out there, but like, and I've seen her, I think the pronoun is they, and I've seen them live, so, which was just tear out your entire heart and soul. So good, so good. That was the first time I'd read poetry and been like, holy crap, that's amazing. And then seen it live and been like, how is that even better? Maybe some of you are very deep into poetry and that's not shocking to you, but that was shocking to me. Okay, now diving into depression, the book called Lost Connections is one of my favorite books of all time in terms of dealing with depression in a multi-pronged approach. Talking about it from being connected to your community, to your family, to your environment, to the society you live in, to like meditation, like all of the different angles that like have to deal with like, instead of just like how Americans deal with things is just a blanket meditate everything, which is how we deal with everything, which sometimes is right and sometimes especially with like mental thing, you know, and I've had terrible bouts of just rough times, and I think depression runs very deep in my family. Potentially there's less shit that runs in my family, but that's a whole nother bed of work. But like, so reading this book and seeing how other cultures and other worlds and other societies deal with the depression in ways that Americans don't is very fascinating, which isn't to say that any meditation is wrong. Once again, it's just a beautiful book on how sometimes societies fail their people, which just naturally leads to everybody being anxious and depressed, which I think a lot of Americans are. A lot of us are sad and depressed and anxious and isolated. So, beautiful book. Moving on. I Live Here. Very hard to find. Incredibly rare book. It was only published and ran. That book will be. I hope. I'm gonna leave it in my will to like donate that to a library when I go, because it's so good. It's one of those books that you open up the actual book. I should get it out. And there's 6 mini books inside, like actual little mini books, and all of them are from places around the world that are dealing with. I mean, it's basically the 6 like hardest places in the world to live at that time. I think it was like Chechnya, Juarez for women. How many women have done it? Like, it was just, if you can get your hands on it and you are someone who is interested in worldly stories and what is going on in the world. She's a famous actress. You may know her from like the L Word, other like teen movies. I think like the Vampire Diary or something like that. One of those vampire shows. And she took all of her fame and privilege and went around the world to like talk to people and tell their stories of what was happening. Also, I tried to write a grant for them in college, which was very fascinating. I think as an organization they discontinued, which was such a shame because they were doing such cool work. But it was one of the most transformative books I have ever read. All of them hurt. I am very empathetic. All of them made me cry. All of them made me. I mean, I know I give capitalism a run for it, like, you know, but my life could be so much worse. And sometimes it takes reading about other people's lives and their stories and their political systems and their kidnapping of women to make you just wow. It was a lot. It took me, I think, a year to get through because each book was like, I had to just like set it down and like lay down and stare into the void for a while, because a lot of them are very hopeless. I think there's a lot of places around the world where it's not as easy as just like sending the military, you know, like there's a lot of like poverty and corrupt governments and drug trades and human trafficking that's like layered on top of like a shit sandwich that you can't just like throw money at and fix it. So a lot of it is very hopeless in that regard because you're like, what can we do? And you just feel like there's nothing. Okay, so on to a comedy book. Mamrie Hart is the funniest writer of our generation. I also love her YouTube channel, You Deserve a Drink. It's one of my favorites. And could not recommend both of her books enough. They are so funny. Oh God, Mamrie Hart. I don't cry laughing a lot, but Mamrie Hart, and then let me just talk about Jenny Lawson, the bloggess, as you may know her online, two of the funniest writers of all time. They are just, I do not often, like I said, cry laughing when I read, but those two, I couldn't read them like at night around people because it was like, I would wake anybody in my house up if I was reading them at night because you just like, you just start wheezing and you're like, I'm so sorry. I'll shut up. Let me just read a horror book. I'll shut up. Mentioning horror books, The Stranger Beside Me by Anne Rule, the story of Ted Bundy. And this is told as a woman. Anne Rule is a very famous crime writer. And she had a personal relationship, not a dating one, just like she knew him, with Ted Bundy. And it is the whole story of all the facts of everything and the extra layer that most crime writers do not get of like knowing him as a human being and as a person and knowing him all the way until he died. Whew, it is a thick book. It is a lot to get through. But boy, was that a ride. The Defining Decade, if you're in your 20s and you want to have an absolute panic attack about your life choices to that point, The Defining Decade will do that for you because basically it's about all of the choices you make in your 20s are going to either royally fuck you in your 30s and 40s, or you're going to be set up for greatness. Or you better keep your damn shit together and like get the ball rolling on investing. If you're dating a partner who's like lukewarm about you, doesn't really want to marry you by the time you're like 32 and your ovaries are dying, because that's the unfortunate part of being a woman, you're in a rough place. How many people cohabitate without actually planning to live together? They just do it because they want to save the bills and the money. And then what the kind of ramifications of just like, I think she called it sliding in together versus like choosing to be. And then just like what happens if you don't invest in your 20s? How many millions of dollars you lose before retirement? It will make you hurt inside, but it's really good if you really need that kick in the pants to like get going. World War Z is the best zombie book I've ever read. If you love both politics and horror, World War Z is, I think, my God, one of the best. Like, it's really like a political thriller with like, and you have to replace reading it in the middle of the pandemic. First of all, was the most wild thing I ever did. And I don't know if that was a good choice because like it was a little too close to home, a little too real. Everything he said about certain countries and how they would deal with the zombie apocalypse, and then seeing how countries dealt with the pandemic. Whew. He knew his stuff. I don't know his background. Obviously, he really, really knows the like deep level of like countries and their politics because, woof. Woof. Okay, last two. Grace's Guide, another YouTuber I love. I've read a lot of adulting books, especially through my 20s. And this one was so down to earth and practical for someone who's like a famous YouTuber and really could have written like a fluff kind of book. I was so shocked at how much not shocked, but I read a lot of, especially in the heyday where like all the big YouTubers were releasing books. I read almost all of them. Most of them are terrible, terrible books. None of those people should be authors. Sorry. They were just famous and got a book deal instead of like wanting to be a writer and then, you know. But this one was really, really well, like you can tell she really put her heart and soul and like mind into thinking about advice that she would give young people on how to be an adult. Like really practical, like deodorant tips before your first job interview, you know, and not just like wear it, but like just like really funny, but also like You didn't tell she went through all of these life mistakes and then was like, here's everything I wish I wouldn't do. Okay. And then the last one, which I had a lot of feelings, even a lot of debate mentally, even mentioning, because I know what he is now. And the book is 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson. And it is, unfortunately, one of, minus all the like religious subtext, one of the best books I've ever read on managing yourself as a human being and how to move through the world. And and it's so unfortunate because I think his mind is so brilliant, but what his advice has become makes it a very hard book to recommend. Even buying it at the bookstore, I was like, please don't ask me anything about him. Please, I hope you don't know anything about him. Like, I was like, oh, like one of those like cringe to like buy it. But it's a really good book, which is so unfortunate. I'm sure you've seen him online. I'm sure you've seen his content everywhere. I mean, he is unescapable, just like Joe wrote in on the internet. And there's so, like, I think there's, just like Joe, I think there's good, interesting things wrapped up in someone whose ego is exploding. That's the only way I can describe it. Very interesting, smart people. I mean, I don't know, but we'll take Joe out of this discussion, but I think Jordan's smart. I think he's very currently swept up in a lot of popularity. So read it with caution. I don't recommend him as a person, but I recommend the book, which is unfortunate. Maybe just rent it from the library and then like don't give him your money. So like I said, I was debating even putting it in here, and I really, oh my god, I read his content like years ago before I had any idea, and before he got so loud on the internet about his opinions. So that is it. I've recommended everything and every kind of book you can ever imagine under the sun: horror, comedy, funny, business, writing, everything, conservative people, liberal people. Everything possible. So I think that's it. I might do an update of this in the future. We'll see. But that is it. I think this video is gonna be over like 40 minutes, so I'll put timestamps of everything down below. That is it. Bye, guys.